This chapter is called 4th of July. 4th of July for the last 2 years has been really tough for me because it was the 4th of July in 2024 that we put Apollo, our German Shepherd, down. Or should I say, Apollo Maximus, his full name. He was born Orion just from his litter order. But that name is weird to say. Like, who says Orion? Like, Oprah, like, even now my mouth doesn't want to do it. But that also just didn't fit him. He was gorgeous and regal, and he needed a better name. And we went to breakfast. We had, the breeder brought him over. And we kind of dropped him off for a 2-week trial. And that first morning, we had gone out to breakfast, and we're just kind of talking through the names. And we just Googled strong German names. We were kind of going through, and of course, Apollo was top of the list. And we're all like, oh, I love that. I love that name. And then we kind of got down to Maximus, and our daughter was like, oh, I love that. Oh, I love Maximus. But that then I was worried would get shortened to Max, and then all of kind of the German would be gone from it. So we ultimately decided on Apollo for the first name and then Maximus for his middle name. And it was perfect. It fit him to a T. Now, his story is a beautiful one. If he was a human being, he would make George Clooney look just like a peasant because he was so handsome and gorgeous. He was a plush coat, which is different than a long coat. He was a plush coat. The way that the coloring was, the red and the brown in his coat, his long fluffy tail, the shape of his, again, I'm talking about a dog, I know, the shape of his nose, it just gorgeous. We'll be sure to post a photo so you can see. But he'd been bred to be a show dog. So his gorgeousness was not by, surprise. It was by design. It was by genetic breeding. And so when he was born to a big name breeder, they kind of put him through the paces of being a show dog with the goal of then, it's kind of like horses. You have a show dog, show horses. Let's just be real. It is fun to show them and have that accolade, but it's all about the money, y'all. You want to rack up points, rack up ribbons. So then, fill in the blank, birds and the bees. And so that was his plan for his life. And he went through the paces and did a great job as a show dog, but he had a genetic anomaly. And I know they test these dogs for everything under the sun before they, when they're breeding to make sure that they're breeding the best with the best and hoping for the best. But he had a genetic anomaly that prevented one of his back molars from coming in. Who could have predicted that? And part of the rules were for dog competition, dog shows, is the dogs have to be unaltered. So usually that just kind of pertains to, are they fixed or not? But because his tooth was missing, it could be perceived that that tooth had been removed for some reason, that he was altered. So they decided to kind of just restructure his life. So Apollo was bred to be a show dog. He had gorgeous fur. It was the perfect combination of red and black, and the shape of his nose was just absolutely. It would have made a Kardashian jealous. It would have made Madonna jealous. Okay, don't even get me started about Michael Jackson. He would have loved it. I mean, it was just absolutely chiseled the way his eyes set on his face. But that was by design. He was bred to be a show dog, and the breeders were breeding the best with the best, hoping for the best. And it wasn't until he was fully developed that they realized his back molar didn't come in. And when you have a show dog like that, they have to be unaltered. And typically that just pertains to, do they have all their parts and pieces? But because the tooth was missing, it could be interpreted that by a judging committee or something like that, that his tooth had been removed. So they decided to kind of restructure his life plan and put him into Schitzen, which is a version of self-protection that dogs do, typically German Shepherd, Belgian, that kind of demo. But he is a lover, not a fighter. And so he would do it because he would do anything you asked him to do. But you could tell his heart wasn't in it. He didn't wake up and live for it every day. And I'm glad that the breeders and trainers recognize that. Yeah, we can train him and yeah, he'll do it, but he's not going to be happy. And that can lead to conflict and disobedience and just a challenge for the dog and the dog owner down the road. So at that point, they're like, oh, well, we can't do anything with this broken dog because he's missing a tooth. He can't be a show dog. He doesn't want to be, Schitzen. We're just going to make him a pet. So we got him for a song of what we would have had to pay for that level of breeding. And the breeder brings him over, and it's for us to kind of hang out with for a week or two and just see if we all vibe together, see if it was a good fit. And it was, oh my gosh, y'all, instant love. And it was hysterical because at that time we just had Coco, a little 25-pound Boykin Spaniel, and she was just a silent thunder. She ruled our house with a stuffed animal and had the boundaries all laid out. And when he came, she literally went to the toy box and pulled out the toys that he was permitted to play with and the ones of hers that were off limits. And he knew it. He would, because he did have a little bit of a stronger bite. And Coco had been trained as a bird dog, so she had a very delicate mouth. And all her toys were perfect and intact and not missing a thread or anything. And Apollo, bless it. He was like a bull in a china shop. Like he wanted to play with the toy delicately, and then he'd look at it 2 seconds later, like, "Oh my God, did you see that? That toy just exploded!" And so we go through all these toys until we find the indestructible toys, which was a fun journey in itself. So we get him as a pet, and I wasn't really sure because I hadn't had, I'd grown up with big dogs. I'd grown up with shepherds, but to have one as my own in my house where I know I am the ultimate, authority figure or something goes sideways was a little stressful at first because I wasn't sure what he was capable of. I wasn't sure. I really advocate about not being prejudiced about a dog breed. Just because it's a bulldog doesn't mean it's going to fight in the backyard. Like, let the dogs be their own personality. Let them be a product of their raising and meet them where they are and who they are versus being like, oh, that Doberman, go take your leg off, girl. And so I was really trying to be gentle with Apollo and meet him where he is and learn who he was while having a house full of 8-year-old girls for sleepovers and hangouts and things like that. And of course, he's such a lover. When people would come to the door, his head was first just, I want to be there. Whereas Coco's in her bed being a queen, she's like, come to me, my subjects, and bring an offering, and then I may let you stroke this beautiful fur. I mean, it's very different dynamic with those two. And so he was right there in the thick of it. The girls would rollerblade through the kitchen. Don't tell anybody, 'cause I'm sure I'll get, fined for that at this point. But, the girls would rollerblade around. They would put aprons on him, tutus, headbands, run up and down the hallway upstairs screaming, happy scream, like, "Wee!" And I hear his feet right behind him. I'm like, oh my God, all I need is this dog to bite one of these cute little 8-year-old girls. And the newspaper will read, German Shepherd mauls suburban child. Like, I could just see that was going to be the headline. But it never happened. He was absolutely tolerant to anything. He never protested. He never complained like Coco was. Coco was straight up, she would straight up U-turn. If you're asking her to do something like get in the water or get in the car or do something, she's like, nah, I'm good. And full on U-turn. Apollo couldn't wait. He couldn't wait to ride in the car. He couldn't wait to chase frisbees in the lake. He couldn't wait to just do whatever you wanted him to do so that he could please you. There was one night I had gone up to visit my parents, and they were still in Williamsburg at that time. And it's weird, when you look back at moments and you think about how differently they could have turned out. It not only reminds you that there is a higher power in play, that there is a bigger hand on this chessboard than I think we often give credit for. But also it makes me give thanks that things did work out the way they did, and that my type A personality didn't somehow sway the pendulum and remove me from the alignment that I was supposed to be on. And so I had gone up to Williamsburg with just Apollo, which was unique because I would have had, my husband with me. I would have had my daughter. I would have had Coco. I would have had just some assortment of entourage. For me to be in the car alone with him, I think that may have been the only time. Besides maybe in the morning taking him to doggy daycare. But even then, I would take our daughter to school and then drop him off at doggy daycare. So I was only alone with him, the place, school to daycare. It was just a really unique and rare thing for us to be alone in the car. I pulled over for gas, and I knew it's one of those moments. I know y'all have felt this where you kind of have that little birdie on your shoulder who's chomping down on the kettle corn. She's like, girl, no, I've seen this movie. This is not good. And then you got the other one on the other side with, who's like spraying her Aquanet. Like, we got this. I don't know. She's crazy. How can she predict the future? What we did, you've got those inner voices, kind of talking to you. So my inner kettle corn was telling me, no, don't stop at that gas station. It was in a kind of a remote area, of course, side of the road. There wasn't a lot of lighting, and the gas station, the inside itself was closed. It wasn't one of those 24-hour places. You just did your card at the pump. And kettle corn's like, oh, we got enough gas. Let's keep going. And Aquanet's like, girl, we're good. We're good. I don't want to test the universe. You only have 38 miles of gas left. It could be 38 miles for another gas station. We need to pull in here. So I pulled it, and the way my car is, my gas tank is on the passenger side. So I was on the other side, leaning against the driver door, and I had the driver door open, and I'm on my phone. I'm doing all the stuff you're not supposed to do. Parked at a gas station, side of the road, in the dark, not well lit, not even open, and I'm not paying attention. The biggest way you can save yourself or be, to help in situations like that is to be alert. Let your attacker know that you are alive and awake, and you can get your hand on the mace bottle in 2 seconds if you need to, or 911. Well, I wasn't doing that. I was just texting on my phone. And a guy comes up, a grown man on like a toddler-sized Huffy bike. When I saw it for a minute, well, granted, I wasn't expecting to see anyone. It was out of context for that environment. So I wasn't expecting to see anyone, first of all. And then when it processed in my mind that I'm seeing a grown man on a toddler-sized bike, not to laugh was hard. But then to realize this is only then, after those two thoughts, did, kettle corn get in here. And she's like, girl, we got a danger. We got a danger. Aquanet's like, no, let it ride. I want to see how this plays out. This is going to be good. And so he comes up to the car and he's like, hey, that's a nice car. It'd look better if I was driving it. My heart just stopped. And then I thought, I've got Apollo in the cargo area. So I hit the button on my driver door to open the cargo, and I didn't call him. I didn't do anything because, again, we're still getting to know each other here. He jumps out of the back of the car and he's running, back legs in front of front legs, running, almost like didn't even touch the ground, almost was so level and flying. And the guy's like on this little bike. He throws the bike. He's like, okay, clown show is over. I'm not even going to ride the bike. He takes off running behind the gas station, almost screaming like a little girl. I don't want to say for sure that he was because I don't 100% remember. There was a lot going on. But I know that the way my mind recorded it, the feeling was that he was screaming like a little girl behind the gas station. The whole time, call your dog back, call your dog back. And I'm like, dude, I didn't know how to call him out. Not to mention call him back. Like, you brought this on yourself. This is between you and Karma now. Like, I'm out of this, kettle corn's just up here, for the show now. And so Apollo comes back to the car, and bless it, because I said he was a lover, not a fighter. He was shaking and his hair was like projectile shedding out of his body. And he came and he put his head on, like, kind of on my thigh, and he's like, I did it, mama. I scared him away. I got him. I was terrified. I didn't want to do it, but I could tell you wanted me to do it, so I did it. And from that moment forward, it solidified my relationship with him. And I completely trusted him. I completely was in his service because I can't imagine how differently that story, God forbid I'd had, somebody in the car with me, a kid in the car with me, but how differently it would have been had he not done that. Because he could have just sat in the cargo area and been like, okay, is there a frisbee coming? Are we at a lake? Like, no, got out charging. So we had a lot of, I don't want to say issues, but he had IBS. Okay, no shame in that game. And we did a lot of diagnostic with him. And with animals, you don't, well, it's expensive. Okay, let's just put it out there. But it was really important to me because he had saved my life. I wanted to make his life as comfortable as possible. So we did a lot of testing, imaging. We sent his blood work down to, I think it was University of Texas or Texas somewhere. We mailed his blood work off to bigger universities, more than what NC State vet school could do. And I know I talk a lot of smack about MooU because I'm a UNC. If you're from North Carolina or you follow NC sports, you get it. There's a big, but I tell you what, in my darkest hours with dogs and horses, NC State Vet Hospital has been there. So I gotta give props where props are. They have been absolute miracle workers in many capacities. Still don't, I still ain't gonna go to a football game unless they're playing UNC. But so did all of this research to try to figure out beyond just IBS what he had, and we couldn't. It was painful for me to watch. He wasn't in active pain, or he didn't look like it. During the day, it wasn't like he had a bleeding wound or a broken leg or whatever. I could just tell, like anyone. When your tummy's upset, you're upset. And so I actually slept downstairs with him because at our house prior, our master bedroom was upstairs. So for much of 2022, I slept downstairs on the sofa with him because he was so cute. He'd come and he'd nudge me, to get up to go outside. And trigger warning: if you're eating or doing anything, stop doing that or pause. His poos were so big, I had to use a shovel. I couldn't use a little scooper pooper because Coco at the time, again, diva, princess, everything she would do these perfect little Tootsie Rolls that were the size of a Tootsie Roll that you could just use a stick to flick them into the woods and, you were good. Apollo and I about needed a little backhoe to scoop his up. And we were feeding him. Anytime he'd ask for food, I'd feed him. It's a hang up I have. If the dog's not overweight and they ask for food, I'm going to give him food. Okay. And at one point we really were fearful because he was getting underweight. And we were thinking, okay, how can we put him on IV nutrition? He was I think he was 65 pounds at his lowest there when we were kind of trying to work through the IBS. But anyway, so he would I fed him all the time. The poos would just run right through. It was, but that was the life we lived. And he was happy and joyful as he could be. It wasn't until after he passed and we were able to do an autopsy, we realized he had pancreatitis. And if we had known that, we would have handled things differently. But I also, through a lot of counseling, I have let the guilt of that go because we made the best decisions we could with the information we had at the time. And we did everything we could to get the information that we needed. And again, it's tough, the pancreas, but that's ultimately what the issue was. And so the last week of June, I remember it was June 24th, I got up, fed the dogs like normal. And now he had one of those puzzle bowls. Okay. So he kind of slowed down his eating. Not because I didn't give him, all the food he wanted, but just, he was a happy eater. And so just kind of slow down his eating, had his puzzle bowl, and I would even feed him half. I'd feed him half because at this point we had Sophia. And so I would give him half of the food, feed Coco, give him the other half, feed Sophia. It was a whole, conveyor belt of feeding. And so I did that morning like normal. And I put the dogs out. And even though our backyard's not fenced, they all knew they're not going to run off. They got it made in the shade here. Okay. They got plush deluxe memory foam beds, toy boxes overflowing. They ain't going nowhere. Okay. Now little Sophia may for an ice cream truck or something like that for a minute, but anyway, so I'd let the dogs out. I came in. I was I was unloading the dishwasher, trying to kind of get the kitchen ready for the family because I knew the girls were going to come down and get ready to go to school and all that. And I go to let the dogs in, and Apollo's not at the back door like he always is. And I'm like, that's weird, but okay. Everyone deserves a day. This is just an off day. And he was just walking around the yard like he was searching for a lost earring. And I'm like, okay, maybe his IBS is acting up and he needs to, take care of business. So I left him outside, brought the girls in, and he's still 10 minutes later, still out there, not coming in. I'm like, okay, now this is really weird. So I went up to him and I could tell in his eyes, he was just in distress. He was just not a happy camper. He was not, then he just up and laid down. And for him not to come in when I asked him to come in, I knew we're dealing with a problem because he wouldn't disobey for anything. Like I said, chase the guy on the mini bike behind the gas station. And so I had a full work schedule that day. And this is also something I really reflect on: how quick this one life that we have goes by, how fragile every person, dog, relationship, moment, how fragile they are because we're not guaranteed the next. And I know we say that a lot, it's in a lot of songs, but to experience it, to truly face that truth, that reality it was cold. It was a very cold truth to and I have changed my actions since then. And so at that point, I had a full work day and I was gonna hit those meetings. I was gonna meet those obligations, in the workday and not focus on him. So I went next door and asked my dad, "Hey, Apollo's in the backyard. He won't come in. He's not gonna run off, but can you just peek out the kitchen window every 10 minutes and, make sure the pot's not boiling over," And I dashed out. I took Sophia to doggy daycare, came back, and at this point Apollo is really in distress. He's breathing very heavy. And I was just thinking, I honestly was thinking, I don't have time for this. I've got to, which is horrible. But that was my truth at the moment. I was like, gosh, Apollo, like, I don't have time for this, buddy. Like, I got a full schedule today. I just took Sophia to doggy daycare. Do I have to take you to the vet and pay $85 just to walk in the front door and then $500 in more imaging? And then like, "God, like, can I have a break?" Like, that's what I was thinking in that moment. And so I did a couple of calls and my dad came in, and he's like, "Jillian, we gotta take him to the vet." And they had a ramp because they had shepherds too. Usually Apollo would jump right up in the back, to the car. He couldn't even jump up in the back of the car. So we had to get the ramp, and all of us really kinda help him into the back of the car, took him to the local vet, which is where the doggy daycare was, and they loved him. Okay, because like I said, he was a gentleman. I mean, if he was a human, he'd be a king of a country. Like he just, oh my God, like he emitted just radiance and gentleman. He was a gentleman. And so the vet daycare place loved him so much so that at lunch, when they would put all the dogs in their separate kennels so that the staff would have their break, they let him run free. And he would just walk around. He'd greet the customers when they come in. He'd lay at their feet. He was able to be just loose because he was so well behaved. So we brought him to that vet, and they told us right then that he had pneumonia. I'm like, how in the world does he have pneumonia? And then it kind of got clarified that it's aspiration pneumonia. When he was eating, he coughed up, went down the wrong pipe, basically. When he was eating that morning, he coughed up and went down the wrong pipe, and it got into his lung and he couldn't get it up. And then that's when the bacteria and, just kind of all that inflammation and starts happening. So they kept him for a couple days, and the weekend was coming. And they realized, okay, we don't really have staff here over the weekend. He's going to have to go home or go to state. And I loved that the vet school, and I love that they gave me this choice. And I didn't even know at the time the gift they were giving me. And it was the vet, the way that she phrased it was perfect because without telling me the way, basically they don't have vets there on, I think it was Saturday after 12 noon and then on Sunday, and it would have been a tech. And she's like, "Look, we're not really gonna be able to do anything for him. He's just gonna be laying around lounging. He's stable. He's not gonna get any better, but he's not gonna get any worse either. He Would you like to come pick him up and take him home so that you can spend time with him and enjoy these days?" She knew then what I wasn't ready to accept yet, that he wasn't coming back from this, despite everything that we threw at it. She'd seen enough of these, cases. And so I love that we brought him home that weekend when he wasn't so far gone that he could still he was not well, but he was not the way he was when we went to visit him at hospital on the 4th of July that year. So we get the ramp, we bring him home, he, hangs out with us. And I'm thinking, okay, we're getting through the weekend. He's going to go to state. They'd already worked it through. They had a bed for him. I was like, we're going to go to state. We're going to knock this thing out, and he's going to be home 2 days later. Not the case. Like I said, we did everything that we could, and the vets there even loved them. They were like, "Gosh, we want to," not that any dog is more special than the other, but he really had won over the hearts of the entire team there. And so we would go in to visit. And the thing that's it's so funny now that I look back on it, but it was really strange at the time. When you go to a normal human doctor, they're all about telling you giving you your informed consent options. Okay, we could do this, we could do this. Here's the pros and cons of these. What do you want to do? Here's the da, da, da. When you're at a doggy vet hospital and the doctor walks in, the first thing they do is tell you your current bill. You're at $4,200, and Just staying through today is gonna be another 850. Here's what we found. We estimate it's gonna be 2,300. Like every action had a price attached to it, which I understand because most animals don't have, health insurance and, just all the. But in that moment, it was like, yes, yes, whatever. I don't care if the balance is 4 million. This is my child. Okay. Like I birthed his little 4 feet. Okay. To say nothing of he saved my life. And so we kind of went through this, and each day we would go, he would run out because he was full of adrenaline. He would run out, and he was the dog I remembered. He was, the dog that would chase the frisbee in the lake. He was the dog that the girls would put tutus on and headbands and chase around upstairs. But then he would crash. And each day we'd go to visit, he'd crash faster. And we went on the 4th of July. Normally at that time, the 4th of July, Memorial Day, 4th of July, whatever, we would go to our neighborhood pool. They do a big, soiree. But it didn't really get going till the afternoon time anyway. And so as a family, we kind of made the decision, hey, we don't want to skip today. We made a commitment to ourselves and to him that we were going to visit him every day that he was in hospital. And so we went down for the 4th of July just expecting to do a visit. That was the hope, the plan, all that good stuff. And so we walk in that day, and at that point we'd put a tube in both lungs. And so he had the tubes coming out, this like mesh, gauzy thing around his chest. He comes in the room still, vigor, still, but it was very abbreviated. And then when he did lay down, you could tell it was like just taking everything in him. And at that point, I looked across the room to my dad and I was like, and the best gift you can give someone is to be their voice in a moment when they can't. And in that moment, he knew that I couldn't vocalize to the vet to put him down. But he also knew that's what I wanted. And so he took care of it. He announced to the vet that we were going to, we're ready to move forward. And the vet, to his credit, even though I swear he was like 12 years old. How old did we go to vet school? Because this guy literally was 12. To his credit, as soon as he knew that we had made the decision to put Apollo down, it was all, they didn't make us sit and waller in that moment and in that decision. The nurse was immediately in with the two things of the medicine and all the kind of the stuff. Cause again, trigger warning if you're eating, when a dog dies, they lose muscle control. So things come out. So they kind of put some protection down around that. And it was so fast that I am grateful. That was one of the things I included in my note to the vet was I love that he didn't go, "Are you sure? Are you sure now? We could keep him another day. There's just one more test we could do. There's one." That would have been agony because I would have agreed to it. I would have been like, "Oh yes, if there's a nanoparticle we can give him, we want to do that." I loved that my dad was my voice in that moment when I couldn't be, and that the vet and the nursing staff were so swift. But then once it was done, they were so patient. They were like, "Stay in here as long as you want. You have this room, until 9 o'clock tonight or whatever." There was no rush to say goodbye, but also it was very peaceful and freeing because I knew that the hardest decision of that day had already been done, that I could just enjoy him for that time. And there was a moment when we were kind of making that decision that there was conversation, should we come home and get Coco and Sophia? Because, remember, Sophia was supposed to be Coco replacement. And now she has, in an instant, become Apollo, replacement. But there was concern if the dogs would be traumatized. We didn't want them to not be able to say doggy goodbye to Apollo. We're really trying to be mindful of the psyche. So we wanted them to be able to see him, you know, and see him pass away so that they could move on and catalog this. But at that time, thankfully, the decision was made not to delay it. This is already a very hard decision. This is already very uncomfortable. We live about 35, 45 minutes away from the vet hospitals. It would have been 45 vet, da, da, da. And who knows what kind of second guessing we would have done in the car during that. So I'm so glad that we pulled the trigger and we did it and made it as quick as quick as it could have been. And then we got in the car and we just came home. And that's another part of the story that I think about every Memorial Day and every 4th of July when I pull out our American flags. I like to, I've talked about it on some of the other episodes, I like to decorate a little bit ridiculously for holidays. And not only does it make me happy, but it is a way for us to kind of mark the passage of time. Okay, we're putting out Valentine's flags. Okay, wow, we're putting out St. Patrick's Day flags. Like it really helps me not lose track of time and wake up in October and be like, where'd the year go? It forces me to pause and inventory. So I am funny about my flags. I mean, getting my flags out and my little yard signs and all that. And you can talk about me in the comments. That's fine. And so with all of everything going on with Apollo, I hadn't switched and put my 4th of July, the American flags up. And when we came home, one of our daughter's friends knew that that was important to me, having those flags up. And bless it, she now granted, they are organized by season, so, I mean, if you can read, you can find them. But to her credit, she went in the garage where she knows I keep them. She found the right one. She got it out. She got a ladder, climbed up, got the just put the one by the mailbox by the road. I mean, she knew that it would help heal. It would help to bring some normalcy if she put the flags out. And I think about that and I include this in the story because I think it's so important for us to take note of things that are important to those around us. Take note of things that, I don't think she cared. I mean, maybe she did care about flags, but I don't think she cared if the flags were out or not. She could have set in the air conditioning on her phone, playing Snapchat or Tick Boom or whatever it is. But she chose to take that action and that level it's still with me. It still sticks with me, that she would do that. So I try to reciprocate that to people around me. I try to take note of things that are important to them that maybe aren't to me, but would be really meaningful, their love language, if you will. And to make an effort to go above and to do those things, especially in moments when they're maybe dealing with some heavy things or, kind of sorting through some emotions and things like that. So that is 4th of July.